Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and with me today, I have the lovely Sherri Leopold. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Sherri, CEO of Option Creators, Inc., is a mentor and a leader of the Stop Self-Bullying movement. I love that. She is also the founder of the Wow Warrior platform, publisher of Wow Warrior magazine, and host of the shows Wow Warrior and Wow, Look Who's Here. Sherri is a 12-time international bestseller. She is currently an ambassador mentor candidate, a regional director candidate, and a first ever national trainer candidate with Givers University. In addition, she has over 27 years in network marketing, direct sales, and experience in speaking, mentoring, and team building. Well, welcome, Sherri. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. It is a pleasure to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, and you have such cool things that I want to talk about. But first, I'd love to hand it over to you. I told everybody a little bit about you, but I'm sure there's more. So can you tell us sort of about your journey and how you got to be where you are today?
Oh my goodness, it seems like such a long thing. I'll try to give you the short version. I was always that person that even when younger and even through junior high school, I was the one that everybody came to, to talk to, the solution girl, I guess, if you will. And always the open ear, but also the proverbial cheerleader. I always say that's one thing that you'll always get from me is I love to encourage and cheer people on. So everything I've ever done in my entire life, I think, has revolved around that, feeling of wanting to just really encourage somebody to just really go all out and just do their best and be their best. And cheering along the way, like nothing specifically for myself, but I've realized through all the different things that I've done is truly my legacy is really wrapped in other people's legacy. Like if I can help you go farther, faster with anything you're doing, that has been a prevailing thing for me. Like I feel like I win too. Like that is very soul fulfilling, I guess, for a lack of better way to put it for me, is if I help you win, like that's everything to me. And that is truly what my legacy is. It's wrapped in everything I do is cheering for other people. So whether it's in the magazine, sharing somebody's talents and their expertise, whether it's interviewing somebody on my Wow Warrior show, it's really all the same, even in Givers University, helping expand people's knowledge and impacting the world. It's always the same, it's like, really, how can I help you? How can I serve you? That's just really the way I live.
I was just going to say that it's being called to serve. And
Yes.
that's I feel the true definition of an entrepreneur is just wanting to serve your people. It's not about you, it's about them. And that's such a huge part of any message, no matter what your business or service is, right? And I love that you mentioned that you were called to serve super early. And at that age, in junior high school, as women or girls back then, we're going through so much and it's hard not to be self-focused and self-centered. So talk to me a little bit about how you started realizing, hey, I just want to help people. I'm not so concerned about myself. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I think a part of it was, and at the time I didn't actually call it self-bullying. But way back when, I was always the one that would actually remember specifically an incident sitting on a curb, just talking to my friend. We were just sitting outside one night, And I said, why do you say that to yourself? Why would you say that like out loud? Like, and that was the earliest time I actually remember asking that question. And it's come into my life in and out so many times. And I really began to see it in being in direct sales and network marketing, because I worked with so many women, especially. And I grew up in a home with domestic violence. For a little backstory, my mom
Oh,
was the strongest woman I've ever known. And she was an incredible woman, so intelligent, so strong. She could figure anything out, but I couldn't understand why she couldn't leave that situation. I didn't understand. It was the one area where if I had to say a word to say she was weak, I couldn't understand. And it took all the way probably into the last 5 years, and she's been gone now for a couple years, but I realized that she did not see her worth and her value. And it was what she was saying to herself in that particular situation that didn't allow her to leave. It took her 17 years actually to
wow.
leave. And so, the thing is, she finally stood up for herself, right? And said, I'm done with this. But it was really the culmination of really seeing that, seeing her actually do that. And she was the first entrepreneur actually that I was ever exposed to too. And I watched her build a business. And I was really intrigued with that. And I thought it took great courage. So that was very inspiring to me, even with everything that she had been through, the losses, the trauma, and everything else. She still persevered and went through. And what I was like, but still that thing was there, that self-bullying thing. And it took me till, actually, there's a story of catalyst that it came from when Anthony Bourdain committed suicide just 3 days after Kate Spade. And I was like, why? And I was like, what is happening? I was driving. I turned the
I
radio off.
remember that.
I said,
Yeah.
oh my God. I said, I called God to the seat next to me, because like I was just driving by myself. I was like, this has to change. Like, what is going on here? And I actually was talking out loud in the car. People probably thought I was on the phone going down the interstate, but I was like, what is the common denominator like between these things? Because my friend had been at my home the night before and was very upset about things that were going on in her life. And all I could see was her face. And I thought, these people have dream jobs. They have all the money they could ever spend in a lifetime. They had great friends, great family. Both of those two people did. And I thought, she's had a broken marriage. She's had a heart attack really young. Like, she was having trouble with her kids. I was like, oh my God, what is going to keep me from getting that call about her?
Yeah.
I felt this very insistent need to do something, but I didn't know what that something was. And I was like, well, what would be the common denominator between her, who was making $14 an hour, and these very famous, well-to-do, very, had everything, and they still checked out? What would be the thing that would be the common denominator? I realized it was what they said to themselves, whether anybody could hear it or not. And I'm like, and the things we say, I'm like, yeah, it's what you say, even up here, even though nobody else can see it. See, that was the thing. These famous people who look like they had everything, but we couldn't see what they were saying to themselves. And
Right.
that was that one thing, right? And so I was like, and I was fortunate that she was actually telling me instead of thinking it. But there was a point she said, she went, and I said, why did you just say that to yourself? And she said, what? I said, oh, I'm a piece of crap. I'm not worth anything. I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm always going to be broke. Life sucks. And she just looked at me with big eyes like that. And she said, wow. And I said, did you think you needed to say it out loud for me to hear it? And she just kind of shook her head. So I said, well, let's go and get, I'm sorry, my internet might be being weird.
That's
So I
okay.
said, let's go outside and take a walk. So we did, and we kind of walked off that sort of bad energy, if you will. And I said, whew, So like that was right in the back of my mind when I was in the car and it was all coming together and I was like, I need to do something. And I was like, I just submitted my first chapter in a collaborative book, the very first one I've done. And I was like, I didn't know what I would do. I was sharing vitamins for a living in my network marketing. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I was like, I don't know how to do it with that. So I was like, I'll write a book. And I was just like, sure. And I was like, what am I going to write a book on? And I was like, self-bullying, what to do when the bully is you. And I was like, the Holy Spirit dropped it right on me right then. And I was like, I felt this calm. It's like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know what it's going to look like. But I knew it was going to be surrounded by the things that we say to ourselves. That's the only thing I knew. So I go to this networking meeting that I was on my way to. Afterwards, my friend says, what have you been up to? I said, I'm going to write a book. She said, you are? And I said, yes. And I said, I'm so excited. And she said, wow. She said, what's it going to be called? And I said, self-bullying, what to do when the bully is you. And she said, what? She said, that's amazing. I can't wait to read it. I am dying, Anne-Marie. I'm dying. I'm trying not to laugh out loud, but I'm like, I can't wait to write it. I didn't even have a word, right? I was like, I don't even know what's going to be about.
You had the title.
I did. And the title stayed the same. It took me a year to write it, but went out speaking on it. But what I knew is that if I just had faith and believed, and I did believe that I could help people the way that I had helped them all the time, sort of out in the past, by being that encourager and that, person who called them on their crap kind of thing. Cause I've always been a person, but I was like, I knew that if I had faith, it would come. I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I felt calm because I knew it would. And I developed, a technique to help snap yourself out of that. It's called the snap technique. That's one of the things in the Stop Self-Bullying movement. It's so that when you do that to yourself, you can snap yourself out of it, but you can also help your sister, brother, whoever's doing it, to do that. And it's a kinesthetic learning because it has an acronym, it has the words, it has the sound, it's everything. And when you get really good at managing your own self-bullying, all you have to do is hear the snap. You teach it to your girlfriends and my husband sometimes says, do I need to snap you? Which immediately makes me stop and say, I did not say something kind to myself.
That was my next question, actually. And it's funny that you said that. I was going to ask you, do you ever find yourself self-bullying?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things I teach in the book and one of the things I speak on. No one is immune, not the Pope, not the president, zero, no one. Now, what I do know is that sort of evolved into my WOW Warriors. And it's one of the reasons why I became so passionate about the WOW Warriors, because I wanted to give women, because I found through direct selling network marketing for so many years, women are professionals at this. Unfortunately, they're really good at it. And it's not, and they're unfortunately really good at allowing their fellow sisters to do it as well, which is why I'm passionate about helping you help your network, right? Because when you know it, you'll call them on that. The better you get at helping see it in somebody else, the less you do it. You never, ever have it 100% gone, because we're human, right? And some days we wake up and we don't feel our best. But the thing about a WOW warrior and why I highlight these particular women is because these women have curated their networks. They know who they can call to snap them out of their crap and who will say, stop it. And they also are really good at lifting others. They have made that commitment that, like, part of my mission and who I am is to lift up others, right? And they do it in spite of their scars, their traumas, their drama, anything that they've been through actually makes them better at managing it. And so those things are the qualities that I look for in the WOW warrior. And I to come full circle, I don't think my mom had that. That was part of the problem. She had friends, lots of friends, but she didn't have that person who said, what are you doing? Like, do you understand your worth? Do you understand you're better than the situation that you've allowed yourself to be in? She didn't have that hand up, not a hand out, but the hand up to remind her who she was in that particular part of her life. And I don't think she had the role models necessary. And that's where the Wow Warrior has come from. These women that I like to profile and interview, they are the people you can follow because they're not perfect, but they've learned how to manage that self-talk, and you can call it self-talk,
Yeah.
whatever, inner dialogue, inner voice, whatever, inner critic, I call it inner voice. Some people call it inner critic, but I don't believe that's 100% accurate, because inner critic, we aren't always criticizing. When we're talking to ourselves in our head, it's not always negative, because we
Right.
have 35,000 thoughts go through our head every minute, like
That I know.
18 million a year. But if you can manage to up level the level of positivity and the level of positive thoughts, imagine who you can become. Right. So it's a process of just expanding and growing who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I wonder, had you not experienced that with your mom, would this be such a calling for you? I feel like that was a huge catalyst in itself, just watching her go through that as a young person.
Oh,
Say,
100%. And that's
why?
why people
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'm so sorry you went through that." I'm like, I am not sorry. I am so
It
grateful. I'm
shaped
so filled
everything.
with gratitude. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I wouldn't be the strong woman that I am today. And I had a college professor write on a paper that I wrote, and it was all on developing personality and stuff like that. And he wrote in the margin, um, because I think it was kind of on nature versus nurture kind of thing. And he said, we learn just as much about who we want to be from our surroundings as who we don't want to be. And I was like, that was very impactful for me. And I was in college when I heard that. And I was like, that's correct, because that lifestyle that she lived and what I saw in that, I was darn determined that would never be me.
Right.
Never. And I didn't care what I had to do, how that was going to look, but I knew that wasn't going to be my life. Now, I didn't make me upset with my mother for doing it. I just knew that I wanted something different for myself. So, and that's helped me make better choices. That's helped me to be very discerning, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so there's a lots of layers of things going into that, but we do learn from, you have people that grow up with abusive parents. They don't all grow up to abuse their kids. Many more probably grow up and say, I'm never doing that, right? Like, they set their life path based on, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that a lot in a lot of the people that I know. Question for you. I'm wondering,
Sure.
you've been doing this so long, and you mentioned a comment. You said, "Did you think that I wouldn't, that you had to say that out loud for me to know?" So, with doing this type of work, would you consider yourself to be somewhat of an empath?
100%. It's funny. I don't think I realized that probably till the last maybe 10 years or so, but I didn't realize, and it's partly more maybe as me becoming more open and doing some more personal development into realizing that I really am very empathic and I'm very energy sensitive.
Yeah.
And so that's like when in the magazine, I meet everybody before they submit articles, and I have to have a conversation with somebody before they appear on the show, because I am energetically sharing energy with you in this screen, and it's important for me that it's in alignment with who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know not everybody does that, but for me, I want it to be fulfilling for you, but also not depleting for me, but fulfilling for me as well. So I do have some of those requirements maybe other people don't do, but that's a protection for me. And that has 100% to do with my own energy. And I want to pour into people. That's what I do. I'm like the proverbial cheerleader, right? And no matter what I would have said to Eeyore still would have been Eeyore. And I don't
Right.
want to absorb that, right?
Right. So I get what you're saying. And just for anyone that's listening that may not be familiar with the term empath, right? I'd love for you to explain it for a second. But what you mean by that, I think I'm correct, is that you can give and pour and pour and pour, and it just never fills the cup, right? No matter what you do. And I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit about when do you know, okay, I can't do anymore. I have to stop, for you.
Yes, and I think it actually part of it for me, it's how I feel. And I'm going to give you a visual of where my stop is. If you think about if I had a rope on me and it stopped about midway and it's pulling you forward, and like if you pull you'll go all the way flat, like there's a stopping point. If I feel energetically like I am about to fall flat, I have to be done. And the thing is also, because there's a lot of discovery, I think, if you will, around a lot of that, I think it's important to know yourself really well. And if I have a conversation with somebody that I feel that pull, I mean, downward, like I'm being sucked dry, if you
Yeah.
I know that I have to limit my interaction with them. And there are people in my family that
Mm.
that is true. And I have, like, there are times I'm like, I can't pick that phone up right now because I need to be good for this interview I'm going to be doing or whatever. I can't answer that call right now. That I'm very clear on that, protecting my own personal energy. Because if I'm interviewing you next, then I don't want to bring that with me or bring a depleted Sherri to that. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important to know yourself and know your limits, and if you want to be the best version of yourself and better your best always, that's the way to do it, is to just truly know and understand yourself so that you can set those limits for yourself. They may not understand it, but it's not about them.
No, they don't. And I think a lot of people might say, people that aren't familiar with energy and what you were just talking about might say, oh, this person is draining, or this
Yeah,
person is toxic. I can't be around this person. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that person may not be or may be toxic for everyone. It's just
correct.
energy matching, which is so interesting to me. So going back real quick, can you describe for anyone listening that might not be familiar with the term empath and how it sort of relates or goes a little bit deeper than what you were saying before?
Sure. I think of the word as empath is that I truly have a very strong sense of how you are feeling. So if you come to me and you are on the verge of tears, and this is one of the things I proves I think I'm so empathic. Like, literally, if you started crying right now, Anne-Marie, it would be almost impossible for me not to cry with you. This is one of the reasons, actually, interestingly enough, I did not finish my master's in counseling, because I was like, who the hell wants somebody that is crying with them? I'm like, I didn't know how to turn it off. I was so uncomfortable with that. I was like, I don't know how to do this without doing that, without changing who I am. And somebody said to me once, well, you do it enough, you kind of get hardened to it, you'll be okay. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No, why would you
I'm
want to
like,
be hardened?
it was just like, I was emphatic immediately. I'm like, I do not want to do that. I never want to be like that. So I'm not upset that I'm that way. I do protect my energy, but I am likely to cry if you cry. Like, it's.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
you just feel can you feel pretty much any emotion from somebody else, whether it be anger, happiness? Is that,
I can feel it a lot. Like, a lot of
yeah.
times if I'm going through a checkout, like with somebody, I can see it. I don't know if I can say I can see it, but I can feel things sometimes. And I will purposely say something to turn that up the other way, and give a positive compliment, or, I'm so glad you were here today. Um, you know,
Oh,
so that I could shop, whatever, because what I know is sometimes it only takes one thing that turns that person's energy in a different direction.
Yeah.
And too many people are, running around going, well, they're just crabby or this or that, or like, and I'm thinking of a specific example of a
Yeah.
friend of mine saying that somebody that she was working with was acting horrible. And I said, did you ask her if she was okay? She goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, if she's acting like upset and just really grouchy, I said, maybe she just really needs somebody to say, are you okay today?
Mm.
She goes, oh. I said, yeah, I think you maybe better go do that, because probably nobody has asked her and she's feeling really bad about something and you just happen to be the recipient of it. If you just take a moment and take your own emotional, response out of it and just say, are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? I said, you'll probably find out what is really going on, but also that's your ability. That's a superpower to have, to change the energy around you, is just by listening. And it doesn't take, I don't think, great intuitive power. It does take listening and being aware, however. And I think we can all be better at that.
Absolutely. And if that isn't a lesson for everyone, right? We've all been out to eat and the server's been grumpy or just cold. And it's so true because I try to do that too. And I'm not perfect by any means. I get grumpy sometimes too, but I always try, instead of getting angry with the server, to change the mood. So I love that you said that.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's funny that you brought that up in that way, because my mother, that's what she did. She was a server, a host, a waitress, and she did own a restaurant. That was her business that she bought. And the funny thing is, and this is one of the things she taught me, she always made the most money in tips, no matter how small her section was compared to anyone else, because she would just kill her customers with kindness, no matter how grouchy they were, no matter how rude they were. She had people that would specifically ask always to sit in her section. They weren't even always the highest tippers. There were some that would tip like, $1 on a $40 meal. And she would treat them as nice as could be, where other people wouldn't even, they would fight to not wait on them because they knew they were poor tippers. And the thing is, but she said, that's on them. That's not on me. That's a reflection of them. And she taught that to me. And I'm like, that's the thing is, also, she used her own energy. I just really thought of this right now. She used her own energy to change the energy at the table. She didn't care about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that something was not good in what was going on with them at the table. And
yeah.
maybe they didn't get along. I don't know who I was it
And,
was a husband and wife, but um
and
he was
isn't it
particularly grouchy.
isn't it interesting though that given everything that she was experiencing, that she still was able to put herself
Yep.
last, regardless of what was going on at home? I think that's
Yeah, that's
pretty
the irony
inspiring.
of all of it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why I say she was so good at everything but that one thing. But she didn't know how to translate that into that isolated part of her life. And, I mean, there's fallout from it, no doubt, where you feel like they're picking the alcoholic who's beating the crap out of you over you as her child. So that there are some issues and things that come with that you have to deal
Sure.
with.
Yeah.
However, once again, I would just not change that, and I still look at her to this day. I will always believe she was one of the strongest women I've ever known. And but all of us have sort of, if you will, that kryptonite, that one thing that we just, no matter how hard it seems like we try to be strong in that, it's just not our strongest area.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Now, let me ask you, do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 4 brothers and a sister.
So there were five of you growing up.
Yes, well, it was all blended out.
There's six. Okay.
Yeah, 6.
So let me ask you, did you ever, and if this is too personal, just say,
No,
Amory,
you're fine. Like I told
did
you, I'm
you
open book.
did you ever ask her about it? Like why she stayed? I'm wondering if maybe it was because of the kids. Maybe she felt stuck.
Oh, that's 100%.
Yeah.
Well, and she, I think, felt she could not financially support them that way. And that,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
interesting in these lessons, how they teach you, right?
Right.
Like that's, I've been married almost 37 years and I still though want to make sure I make my own money. Like
Yeah.
that's, and
Yeah.
it's an independence thing because I saw that was something that that held her hostage for that, right?
Hmm.
Like to the relationship that she knew was not good because he was the primary bread earner. Now my dad paid child support, so that was for four of us. That was not but it was way back then. It
Yeah.
was not very much for four kids. But the fact is, he was amazing. Like my father was just a gift. So it was very interesting. It was also that other psychological thing of going from, you went from this to that. What?
Oh, yeah. That must have been, I can imagine that. Yeah, that must have been.
I was
How
like, what?
how old are you talking right here? Like, were you?
I was only two when they split up. So or two and a half, something like that. So I
Yeah,
was
so
very
young.
young. I was
Mhm.
not, that's one thing I actually am very grateful that I never ever had the thought, oh, I wish my parents would get back together. I know a lot of kids go
Yeah.
through and there's broken marriages and things like that. I never thought that. I thought it was weird growing up and knowing people like I know them. I thought, I do not know how they were even together
Yeah,
because they seemed more like they would have been great friends or brother and sister. Like they just didn't seem like, I can't even envision them being married, honestly. It's
that's
just a
funny.
weird thing for me, but yeah,
Yeah.
different people.
So I want to ask you a little bit more about something that you said earlier when you were talking about how you realized that you couldn't be a counselor. That now, were you going to get your PhD in psychology, or was that your
Well, I have
original
a
plan?
bachelor's in family social
Okay,
services,
social service.
and so I went on to study for my master's in counseling, and then I had three children, and that was trying to manage that many kids and driving 30 minutes to each way and babysitters, and it was too much. I was like, I can't do this. So, and I was working. Kind of like when you get, and this maybe it's just me with myself, but I know that I have a certain limit. Like when I get to a certain limit, if I have too many things, I do none of them very well. I do them all very,
Yeah,
very mediocre. And that's not really how I want to show up in the world. And I mean, I got good grades and things like that, but I knew that what was coming up were the practicums and the actual counseling. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to be available with children and working and doing all this. I wasn't going to be able to do it.
yeah,
And looking back, it's very interesting because I use a lot of the skills and the different things that I taught.
yeah.
I'm using them anyway.
That's what I was gonna
In
say.
everything I do, even speaking, all the things I'm like, I probably technically would have never even had to go to college to do what I'm doing because so much of it I've learned in just lifing
Yeah,
and
it's
personal development. So
and now it's okay if you cry with someone.
yeah.
It's not a
Well,
big
and the thing is, if it's not okay with you, you're not my people. That's the honest to God
right?
truth. And I know that now. I don't think I knew that now. Although still, even in a professional setting, it would not be well received.
No,
Um,
I actually, if you, I have a similar story. Um, if you don't mind, I'll share it with you
sure.
really quick. So when I was younger, wanted to be a vet. I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to be, along with like a trapeze artist. But whatever, I wanted, I wanted to be a vet. And so when I was older and um, just out of high school, I got a job as a vet tech.
Mhm.
And I was like, yes, I'm going to learn to be a vet. This is great. And so I don't know if it's a combination of being the biggest animal lover in the world or being an empath or what it is, but would, as a vet tech, you have to hold the animal
Yeah.
when it's being put down. And it got to be an issue that I was finally called into the vet's office and says, Anne Marie, I don't think this is the job for you. You can't be crying more than the dog owner.
Exactly. Yeah, same.
So I'm like,
Well, that's
okay.
the thing. If I cry when you cry, what the signal is for the other person on the other side is, man, I must be really screwed up. I made her cry. It's still horrible. Like
Right?
I knew what the message was. That's why I was like, this ain't working.
Yeah. So that's, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
That is so funny. So I want to ask you, in your work now, in trying to help people understand the negative thoughts, the bullying,
Mhm.
how can you help somebody that really might be going through something really negative in their life? Like maybe somebody that, um, is out of shape or overweight or isn't very healthy and needs to make a big change, not only emotionally, but physically. How do you help somebody with that?
I think it's a little bit different for each person and because we all have different uh programs, paradigms, whatever you want to call it, that you bring in. So I think each person is a little bit needs to be looked at individually. But I think the first thing is really stopping a moment and actually taking a look at your thoughts. Like what are you thinking about daily? We there seems to be a disconnect, in my opinion, on when people think things and what they think is true. Like they think that just because you think something, that it's true. And that's actually a falsehood. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. So if you say, oh, I'm so stupid, here's the thing with that thought. Are you really stupid? No, you're not stupid. You may do something that is stupid, but it doesn't mean you are stupid. That is truly two different things. However, your brain does not, I'm actually a licensed Dr. Amen brain trainer too. I didn't say that, but like I understand how the brain works. And the thing is, it is a computer, just like the computer we are on. It does nothing unless we type something on it. We are making it compute by telling it commands. That's what the thoughts are. So when we say I'm stupid, are going to look for all the things that make us stupid. Find people who tell us we're stupid. Find friends who make us feel small. Take everything as offensive from people at work, like that you're not doing enough or you're not good enough at your job. Like we're going to find all the people see they think I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Like we then zone in and look for those things that affirm our thoughts.
Or yeah,
It's so important.
or I'm so ugly,
Yeah.
or
Or
I'm
I'm
so
so fat.
fat. Yeah, I think like I'm sure men struggle with this, body
Thank
dysmorphia
you.
is like a real thing, like that all people struggle with. But I think that women
You know what?
especially,
Here's the thing though, that I think is different between men and women, which is why I usually work with women.
yeah,
I have a couple guys that I mentor this like because they're in businesses with me. But the thing is, men are different than women in that regard. Yes, they still self-bully, but what they don't have the same emotional capacity to hold it all in, like, and stack it up, stack all the crap up. They don't do that. Men tend to like let the things go. They're like, oh, I'm not, I guess I'm not good at that. I'll go do something else. Women are like, oh, I'm terrible at that. And they'll go tell you, oh, I'm terrible at that, Amory. And you're like, oh, I know, me too, girl. Like, you're like, this is what we do. We camaraderie around, I like support each other. Oh my gosh, I would never be caught dead on a beach. Oh, I know, me either. In a bathing suit. Oh my gosh, people would run screaming. We laugh. We have self-deprecating humor. Guys don't really do that because they don't accentuate out loud usually their weaknesses. They just hide them, tuck and run. That's my experience.
that
And
is so interesting.
And so that's why that's why I focus mostly on women, because
Mm,
women tend to just hold it all. They're just like, oh, you want to give me some crap? You want to tell me some negative stuff? Okay, let me hold that for you. Let me hold that for you. Here, let me
oh
hold
my
that
God,
for
I
you.
love that visual of like just like holding. There's somebody made a funny TikTok video about that. Just like all this baggage like that we carry with us
Yep.
all the time. But I love that. But anyway, you're so right. Like I was just as you were saying that, I was picturing like well, for example, my boyfriend and his friends talking about, oh, I don't look good in my bathing suit. Like, I can't even imagine that happening. You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
And
because they don't care. They're going to be like, this is how I am.
so
Like it or leave it.
there truly is, there is a definite difference between the chemicals of a male and female brain,
I would
without a
say
doubt.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And
Well, and we have, and it could also, you can point to the fact, I believe that men have 2 hormones and women have 5 or 6. I can't remember. That alone should explain that difference. So, like, we have lots of things firing all the time that are making our emotions go up and down, whereas men have 2.
yeah.
Like, so that's a really big, that makes for a really big difference,
Yeah.
I think, in response to things, because like, we have a lot more corn popping in the
Yeah.
corn popper, I
Yeah.
guess, if you
Yeah.
will.
Because I'll often ask my boyfriend, hey, what are you thinking about? And he'll be like, nothing. I'm like, we joke because I said, if you were ever in my brain for 2 minutes, you'd be like, like, well, his brain would be
Like,
like,
can you hear the
hello,
whirring?
hello, hello.
Yeah, same. It's after 37 years of marriage, same. Be like,
Yeah,
what do you think about? Oh, I don't know. Like, oh, okay. I've had
it's
like 40 thoughts while we've been sitting here.
oh
Yeah.
my God, that stuff is it's just so interesting to me because the brain and the way it works and how it's a computer and all of that is so
Yeah, and the thing is, I often ask people, like, you realize that if you just sit down in front of your computer and you just look at it, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And it doesn't happen until you put your fingers on the keyboard, which is a choice. And that's one of the things that I teach so much about self-bullying and about standing up and standing out as that unrepeatable miracle. Listen, your hands are on the keyboard. You're literally typing the ticker on the brain and telling yourself what you're thinking. People want to disassociate themselves with their thoughts. Like, this isn't you. This is you. You have the choice to control it. And you are, I learned this in a preschool training because I taught preschool for 14 years. I'm like, you're the boss, Applesauce. Went to a conference. Best thing I ever learned was to teach your kids, I'm the boss, Applesauce. I kid you not, from that time, taking my kids to school every morning. This was from grade school to middle school and one in junior high. I made them say, I'm the boss, Applesauce. I'm the boss of me every day on the way to school.
oh, I love that.
Because the thing is, everybody else tries to tell you who you are. And when you don't know who you are when you're 12 or when you're 6, you're going to take in everybody's opinion of you, I'm like, don't type on my computer.
Oh, that's a great, I love that. I love that. Talk about real quick, we're getting to the end here, which I'm so bummed because this has been so much fun, but talk about the miracle, be the miracle, or you just mentioned that really quickly.
Absolutely.
So I would like you to
Yes.
speak to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I always say stand up and stand out as the unrepeatable miracle that you are. I use that all the time when I'm speaking, and I use it as a reminder because, and it isn't, I'm not using it necessarily in a religious sense. So I just want people to understand, everybody knows what the word miracle is, right? That unique, one of a kind, like amazing thing. That's you. And the reason that I know that's you is because there are 8 billion people in this world right now. And your DNA isn't repeated anywhere in the 8 billion, not once. And it would take, I forget what it is, 130 billion before the DNA sequence would ever be repeated. No one will live long enough to ever have it happen. So I always say you're a snowflake, Anne Marie. You see,
Mm.
it looks like it's all white and it looks like they're all the same, but when you look at every single one, there's not one that's exactly like the next one. We are a snowflake, and that's okay. That's the beauty of being who you are. You are so unique. There isn't a single other person on the planet who is like you. That alone should make somebody want to give themselves a giant hug and say, I am freaking amazing. I am so amazing that source, creator, God, whatever you want to do, I don't care if you think you came from a speck of dust. That speck of dust is a unique individual, and there's only one you. That's how you stand up and stand out as that unrepeatable miracle, because no matter how hard somebody would ever try, they can't be you. They can't deliver a message like you. They can't do a podcast like you. They can't create a course like you. They can't do anything the way you do it, because only you can do it.
That's amazing. You almost made me cry. That's
And that's
amazing.
right. But that's just the
Yeah,
thing. When you
so cool.
realize when people are saying bad things about themselves, I always say, you are literally saying you made a mistake.
And yeah,
No mistakes have been made. You
no,
are uniquely you. Your scars, everything you've gone through has made you exactly who you are, and to share exactly the way that you do. That's the miracle that is you.
that is
When
so
we can
awesome.
own that, that's how we stand up and stand out,
Give
right? And
give
that our
yourself,
energy goes up. It's
yeah,
all beautiful.
give yourself a big hug, like you said.
Yes,
I think that's so cool.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
You darn miracle. You're so amazing.
All right. So tell me, what's next for you? Do you have anything exciting in the future coming up? Any
Oh
big?
my gosh, I have so many things.
Oh,
I'm
good. Tell us.
actually, I don't have the dates in front of me. I think it's the last half of October. I'm actually doing, I have a master class that I do that is called, what is it called? Self-bullying. It's how to stand up and stand out as the unrepeatable miracle is essentially the class. And I do a 4-week class. It's actually, there's a bonus session, so it's technically 5, but it will run through the end of October into November. And it's really just sort of a step by step. I do teach the technique, and each week we'll have some things to work on. And it is just, it's really, generally a fairly intimate group of people. We do it on Zoom, so people can do it anywhere. And it's really just about you learning to understand who you are, and really identifying what your strengths are and what makes you uniquely you. Because what I find is that many people today simply just don't even know themselves. They don't know what they're good at. They don't know, they don't even know what they should like about themselves. They've been so busy beating themselves up, with the bat, as I call it. I had to tell my friend who was sitting on the floor in that earlier conversation, after she said that, I said, "Put the bat down." She's like, "What's that mean?" I said, "The one you're beating yourself with." That's actually part of the book and part of the course, is because that bat is there from birth. And when
Mm.
we begin to understand that bat is there, we just beat ourselves to death with it. And that's the part of the learning, that to put the bat down. And I teach you literally and figuratively to stand on the bat with both feet, so it cannot be picked up by others, which is you standing in your power, but so that you can't pick it up as well.
Mm. Okay.
So that's one thing that's coming up. Of course, I have a magazine. The next issue is coming out. I think it's September 6th. So, that's a quarterly magazine. So always
Lots.
amazing people coming on that, people on the show. I'm all about loving what I do. I don't
That's
do anything I
awesome.
don't love. And I'm actually building another business that's confidential right now.
Oh, top secret. Okay, well, we'll have to make sure we stay in touch with you. So I'm gonna put all of that information, if you want to get me the exact dates for that new
Yes, I will.
the new course you have coming out, or program that you have coming out. I'll make sure I put it in the show notes. So the last thing I do in every episode, I don't know if you've heard one of my podcasts before, but the last thing I do is I just ask you a few random questions just to
Sure.
get to know you a little bit better. Okay, you ready?
Uh-huh.
All right. If you had the opportunity to go to space and step foot on the moon, would you?
Oh, yeah,
Really?
definitely. Yep.
That's like a 50-50. It's really polar opposite.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. You would. All right. Second, if you had the opportunity to have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, that's hard. I think because I want to live in the present, I would probably pick somebody who's alive. And this is so weird and random probably, but I would, oh gosh, so many people are rushing into my head right now. Actually, I really would love to just sit down and chat with Kelly Clarkson because she's
Kelly
been through a
Clarkson,
lot.
really?
Yeah, she's been through a lot. And I know when she was going through her stuff, I so bad wanted to send her my book because I know it was a rough time. But I mean, I could have tried to send it to her, but
Sure.
I don't
Oh,
know that she
that's
could have ever
awesome.
gotten it. But I've always loved her energy. I love her music, but I love her energy. And anytime I've seen her, she's just very real. Um, and I think like I look at her when I see her interviewed and see her talking, like she's somebody I would hang out with and be friends with, regardless of any status or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just somebody I'd like to get to
Oh,
know.
that's so cool. I love to hear everybody's different answers. And then my last one
I mean,
is,
Jesus would not be
oh,
nice to
Jesus was, yeah, somebody asked me mine, and mine was Jesus or Neil Diamond. I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan, but
nice.
definitely Jesus. All right, last. I love to hear about morning routines. So tell me the first thing you do every morning.
I don't know that I have a super, super specific thing, but I will tell you the thing I've always thought, I'm using air quotes, that I was supposed to get up at, 4 or 5 because that's what I'm supposed to do. And I've realized my genetics, neither one of my parents were early risers. What I find is I'm happiest when I just have no alarm set. I get up when my body needs to wake up.
Yep.
So that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur is I have that ability to do that. I don't let anyone schedule in very early, and that's on purpose because I want to be able to do my gratitudes and I want to be able to do my own devotional. And I don't want to wake up feeling rushed like I have to hurry to something. That's just that's me being me. And so I've let go the last few years of saying I have to do it a certain way. I don't have to do it a certain way. I have to do it my way. So it's authentic to me. And for me, if and typically I'm up at 7:30, but I mean, I know other people be like, I've worked for 3 hours.
Oh
Good,
no.
good for you.
I, this conversation has been so awesome in so many ways, but especially just now that you said that, this morning, I'm not even kidding you, this morning, I get up every morning. My boyfriend goes to work at like 6:15. I go back to sleep. I wake every morning. I wake up at 8:15. And this morning, and every morning I feel guilty because I'm like, I need to be getting up earlier. But I also work until like sometimes 6, 7 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Or
Yes.
whatever. So I said to myself this morning, who says you have to get up at 6:30?
That's right.
You're the
Type
boss,
it on the
Applesauce.
computer. You're right. I'm the boss, applesauce. Let me just type that into my computer. It's perfectly fine that I get up at 8:15.
So
And the thing is, who's to say? You
it's
know what? Are you paying my paycheck? Like, then you don't need to tell me what time to get up. That's how
right.
I feel about
It's
it.
self-talk. And it's just
It
so
is.
funny that you just said that. That's just so funny to me that's funny.
Well, you know what? That's because that was what you needed to hear. And I had to tell myself that because every other thing that was in the ear was get up, get up, get out, do it sooner, do it sooner. But I think this goes with manifestation and all these things. We don't have to work 12 hours a day. You have to work consistently and you have to work very focused on the things you want to accomplish, but you don't have to do it between any set hours.
No,
The
no.
only thing I do know, and this is brain science, is that you will be the smartest 2 hours within 2 hours after you work out. So if you get up at 8:15 and you have breakfast and or work out right away and you walk on a treadmill, whatever, the next 2 hours are going to be your focus and on fire moments.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I
Yeah.
usually work out after work. I'm gonna try and switch it up and see what happens.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll be on board earlier.
you might find that you get done earlier because your focus is different.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, that's something that's great to know. That's a good tidbit. So I
Good
appreciate
for your
that.
brain anyway.
Sherri, this has been so
Mhm.
amazing. I have loved every minute of this. I will definitely make sure everybody keeps in touch with you.
Thank
And
you.
I just look forward to hearing what's next.
Yes. Well, there's a lot coming.
Yes, we'll
I'll
have to
tell you
stay
that. There's a
tuned.
lot coming.
Thank you so much for being here, Sherri. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.